Third episode opens with a group of hunters tracking wild boars. They corner the animals and kill them, but when one hunter approaches a carcass to take a selfie, he suddenly begins coughing violently and collapses. His friends rush to help him, only to fall unconscious as well. The camera pulls back to reveal that the area where both animals and humans lie unconscious sits directly behind an oil well. Meanwhile, Tommy and Angela are driving from Midland to Fort Worth. Tommy needs to meet Cami to address the Galino problem, while Angela is viewing houses with a realtor named Steven. Their conversation about life is interrupted when Cami calls, having combed through MTex's financials and discovered how close they are to bankruptcy. Tommy promises to meet her after dealing with Galino. He then calls Rebecca and insists she join the meeting with Cami, since she will be handling the legal side. A short while later, Dale, Boss, Ben, Jarrell, and Russ arrive at the oil well to investigate. They quickly identify the machinery's flaws, but when Jarrell climbs to the top of the silo, he spots the dead bodies scattered below. As the others move toward the corpses, a shift in the wind triggers the H2S sensors on their shirts, forcing them to sprint away. While fleeing, Dale, Boss, Ben, and Russ begin puking violently and suffering headaches and burning eyes. They scream up to Jarrell to stay on the silo, as the gas hasn't reached him. Dale calls emergency services, knowing the leak must be contained and Jarrell must be rescued without exposure. When the rescue chopper takes too long, he orders the others to suit up in hazmat gear and gas masks. Elsewhere, Ariana applies for a job at the Patch Cafe. A staff member bluntly asks if she can handle working in an environment full of sexual harassers. Ariana admits she would not react well if assaulted. Asked whether she can make drinks, she says yes and is sent to Barney, the head bartender. Barney explains the place has no training program. She will be thrown straight into the fire and will have to sink or swim. Ariana's first day goes terribly. A customer repeatedly sexualizes her, and when she initially lets it slide, he escalates, causing her to snap and break his nose. She almost quits on the spot, but Barney tells her she is allowed to handle customers just as she handled that one. Understanding what he means, Ariana decides to stay. Tommy drops Angela at the first house Steven shows her, immediately telling her he can't afford it. Angela insists that with the right motivation, anything is possible. Tommy brushes it off and heads to Galino's office, Angel U.S. Investments, where Galino introduces himself as Dan Morell. After some small talk, Dan praises Tommy for Cooper's work and says their partnership is off to a strong start. Tommy disagrees, warning that the revenue from their 6 wells will attract unwanted attention from the IRS and a probate judge. Dan dismisses the concern, claiming he will handle everything because he wants to build a long-term business foundation. Tommy rejects the offer outright, knowing Dan is a drug dealer and refusing to be associated with him. Dan becomes irritated. He has been trying to launder his reputation through legitimate investments, and Tommy's refusal exposes him. He then threatens Tommy, implying that if he could save Tommy's life once, he could also take it. He urges Tommy to accept the deal, framing it as beneficial for both of their futures. Back at the oil site, the wind shifts again, and the H2S gas finally reaches Jarrell, causing him to collapse. Dale, the only one fully suited up, rushes to him and manages to fit a gas mask over his face. Just then, the state trooper helicopter arrives and lowers a harness. Jarrell is strapped in and airlifted to a safe distance. The troopers then take Jarrell and Ben, both severely affected, straight to Midland General Hospital. Dale, Boss, and Russ, who are in better condition, are told to drive there. While driving to Cami's office, Tommy calls Cooper, who is busy drilling another well. Tommy orders him to stop immediately and come to Dorothy's funeral the next day, promising to explain why working with Dan is dangerous. Cooper hears the seriousness in Tommy's voice and agrees. Moments later, Ainsley calls Tommy for an update on Angela's house hunt, but he admits he has no idea because they have been handling separate tasks. Before hanging up, Tommy tells her she must attend Dorothy's funeral, whether she wants to or not. Tommy reaches Cami's office, where he is joined by Rebecca, Nathan, and Cami. There, he finally gets the full breakdown of why MTex essentially has no money left. Rebecca explains that MTEX isn't one single entity. It's divided into smaller companies, all LLCs, whose revenue is supposed to funnel into Monty's holding company. In theory, that holding company then redistributes money back to the LLCs for their expenses. But in reality, the money going into the holding company never makes it back to the individual LLCs. So how are the LLCs operating? On credit, massive amounts of credit. According to Nathan, the deeper they dig, the more loans they uncover. This means that even though MTEX as a whole is generating money, the revenue is disappearing. And because of the loans and giant interest rates, even if money does reach the LLCs, there would be no profit left after paying off debts. Rebecca believes this entire system was originally designed to cut tax liability, but because it went unchecked for too long, the company no longer has the funds to begin offshore drilling. Without offshore drilling, the $420 million insurance settlement will remain frozen. What they need most urgently is to find the account that pays all these loans. Tommy tells Cami to call Alan and ask about the account. Cami reveals that Alan hasn't been picking up his phone, making him the prime suspect behind this financial disaster. Tommy promises to track Alan down, force him to reveal the account, and fix the mess. Cami suspects Alan will be at the Cattlemen's Club for happy hour. Since MTEX is a member there, Tommy and Cami can easily walk in. On the way to the club, Tommy gets a video call from Angela, who excitedly shows him the house she has chosen. When she realizes Tommy is heading somewhere with Cami and hears the words Cattlemen's Club, she announces she will meet them there. Before Tommy can object or explain that the house is completely unaffordable, Angela hangs up on him. They arrive at the club and immediately spot Alan. They confront him, and Alan begins his usual excuses, along with a dose of sexism toward Cami, before Tommy shuts him down. Tommy warns him that regardless of his attitude, Alan must show up at the office with his team and explain where all of MTEX's money has gone and how they're going to handle the $420 million lawsuit. Knowing he has no escape, Alan agrees. Just as Tommy and Cami prepare to leave, Tommy spots Dan and goes to speak with him. Dan launches into the classic villain pitch, that he and Tommy aren't so different. Tommy counters that what separates them isn't the method but the motive. Before he can finish the conversation, Angela bursts in, joins Dan for drinks, and calls Cami over for shots. Then Dan's wife, Bella, enters, trapping Tommy at the club until Angela is ready to leave. Later that night, we cut to a conversation between Dale and Nathan. Dale shares updates from the hospital. Ben has been discharged, but Jarrell is being kept overnight for observation. Nathan asks if Tommy is making the right choice by taking the lease on that contaminated well. Dale says cleaning it up will be hard, but not impossible. Nathan says he will pass the message along when Tommy comes home. As Angela, Bella, Cami, and Dan's conversation reaches its peak, Tommy tries to nudge Angela toward leaving. Dan notices and pulls Tommy aside to continue their earlier discussion. Sensing MTEX's financial desperation, Dan offers himself as the quick fix they need. Tommy immediately rejects him and leaves the club with Angela. Since Cami stays behind, Dan takes the opportunity to slip his influence into her life. He tells her that if she needs an investor, she should call him. Unaware of his criminal background, Cami doesn't see the danger and agrees to consider it. The episode closes with a heartbreaking moment. Cami returns home, hugs Monty's framed photo, collapses to the floor, and breaks down crying.